The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the September 26th meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Rob Allen. I'm vice chair of this committee and the commission, and I'm standing in serving as chair tonight with the planned absence of our primary chair, Wes Tripp. Throughout this meeting, you may hear us shorten some of the terms like Certificate of Appropriateness to just COA and Raleigh Historic Development Commission to just RHDC. At this time, I'll ask staff to call roll.
Lauren Woodard. Present. Rob Allen.
Here.
Jordan Ryland.
Here.
Wes Tripp is excused, and Bonglay and Trey Lopez are also excused.
Okay. So we do have a quorum. However, for any of the cases that we'll hear tonight, for them to be approved, we would need to have we'd need to have a unanimous vote from the three of us. So with that said, we did want to give any of the applicants who are here tonight the opportunity to automatically defer to the next month's meeting if you wanted to postpone. The situation would be that if the vote is 2-1, it would be deferred until a future meeting, which may be 2 or 3 meetings out. So if you think, you use your judgment, but if you would like to automatically defer to next month's meeting, you're welcome to do that, and we will pause for just a moment in case anyone here would like to do that. Maybe signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will get started. So prior to beginning the meeting, we'll ask that if you do plan to speak this evening, please come up and sign the registration at the center part of the bench here. We just ask for your name and information ahead of speaking. The COA committee is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by North Carolina general statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness. Our committee is a council-appointed membership composed of residents from historic districts, architects, intern architects, architectural consultants and general contractors, attorneys and historians, urban planners, and historic preservationists. We will have my fellow commission members here introduce themselves, beginning with Lauren and then moving across to Jordan.
Hello, I'm Lauren Woodard. I'm an architect here in Raleigh. I worked for many years on custom housing, and I'm in institutional architecture, and I live in East Raleigh.
Like I said, my name is Rob Allen. I'm vice chair of this committee. I'm a resident of the Boylan Heights Historic District. I work at a architecture firm managing mostly commercial projects, and like many of you, I've been an applicant for my own home and for some of my clients in the past. Jordan?
Hi, I'm Jordan Ryland. I'm a resident of Raleigh, and I'm also an architect here.
Thanks, Jordan. I'll now ask for staff to introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Colette Canane. I have worked for the City of Raleigh for 6 years, and I have a master's degree in historic preservation.
Hi, I'm Erin Morton-Pugh. I'm also a senior preservation planner with the city, going on, I guess, 4.5 years now or so, and I also have a master's in historic preservation.
And I'm Catherine Hill, attorney for the board.
Tanya Tully is here as well. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Tanya Tully, Historic Preservation Supervisor. I also have a master's in Historic Preservation, and I've been with the city now 17.5 years. Thank
you. All right. We'll now move on to discussing the minutes and the agenda. Prior to this meeting, the prior meeting's minutes and staff reports were made available online. Looking at the minutes from the August 22nd Certificate of Appropriateness Committee meeting, I'd like to make a motion to waive reading of the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lauren. All in favor, say aye.
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 Were there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll motion to adopt the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to the agenda for this evening, I'd like to make a motion to approve the final agenda as stated.
Seconded.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 We will note that case, we were going to leave it on the agenda, but case COA.0100.2024, 516 North Blunt Street is unable to attend tonight, so it will be continued to next month's meeting. Is that
Yep, that's great.
acceptable
We
to
just
do?
need to state the date of that meeting.
Say that one more time, please.
The date will be, it'll be deferred to the October 28th,
Okay.
2024 COA meeting.
Thank you.
24, October 24th.
October 24th. Thank you, Colette.
Thank you. All right, so we are ready for the evidentiary hearings. And before we begin the evidentiary hearing, we'll outline the quasi-judicial decision process. In hearing cases, the committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. This means that this meeting is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this committee must make decisions. These rules are different from some other types of land use decisions, like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. During the hearing, we receive evidence to determine that the proposed changes are not incongruous, excuse me, are not incongruous with the special character of the district or the historic property. We reviewed this evidence against the RHDC design guidelines referenced in the city ordinance before issuing a certificate of appropriateness. This committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at the hearing. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in that ordinance. The committee must base its decision on competent material and substantial evidence provided in this meeting. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and the standard and avoid personal preference or opinion. There's no time limit on testimony, but repetition is discouraged. Each application is heard in the same way, utilizing the same meeting procedure. The quasi-judicial format of the hearing requires that we be impartial. The written staff reports are evidence presented just as other evidence and were made available to us, the applicants, and the public at the same time. If any of us have had any reason to discuss any specific details of an application prior to today, we will ask that we are excused or recused from that portion of the hearing. Participation in this meeting is limited. While it is open to the public, everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully, and parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify to the facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as the facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts and not opinions. For certain topics, the committee needs to hear testimony from an expert witness. These topics include projections about impact of property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. Because the quasi-judicial format of our hearings, we are required by North Carolina law to affirm or swear persons in that speak prior to them coming to the lectern. All speakers will be affirmed at the beginning of each case, and we'll now begin the evidentiary hearing with case COA 0055-2024, 1102 Glenwood Avenue. And I believe I'll welcome staff for their presentation. I believe Aaron Morton-Pugh will make a brief presentation.
Sure. Would you like to swear me in now?
Yes,
or
I'll
after?
swear both
Okay.
staff in who might be speaking. Aaron and Colette, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much.
Okay. There we go. So this is case COA 55, 2024, at 1102 Glenwood Avenue in the Glenwood Brooklyn Historic District. You heard this case on your July agenda, and they are returning with a revised design and additional evidence. The request is to remove the rear addition, construct a one-story rear addition, construct dormers, replace the historic wood attic windows with new aluminum-clad windows, replace the front railing and gate, remove the existing concrete front steps, and construct brick front steps. So these are all photos you've seen from the July meeting, just as a reminder of the condition of the property currently. This is the view from Glenwood Avenue and a look down the north property line and the south property line as viewed from Washington Street. This is a corner property. And the rear elevation and rear lot from the alley. A summary of staff concerns are the south dormer visibility and the proposed roof form, the use of asymmetrical dormer designs on an otherwise highly symmetrical building, no evidence to support that the existing historic windows are deteriorated beyond repair, or to support the use of a substitute material on the historic building, and no evidence to support replacement of the historic concrete steps with a brick substitute material.
Thank you very much. We'll now call on the applicant for either their presentation or any additional information they would like to provide.
So, hi, how are you?
Hi, before we get started, I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear, would you start by stating your name and address?
So, Jeffrey Scott Taylor, I'm a retired architect and current homeowner of this property.
Great. And if you don't mind, I'll swear you in. If you don't mind raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. You can proceed.
So maybe we can, this is a good elevation to start.
I'll just add,
Oh, sorry.
if you want to scroll through any of the photos we
right.
have, there's a mouse up there. You can just
see,
scroll
yeah.
the wheel.
So the front elevation, if the board recalls, I hadn't proposed any new work on the original submission, so three relatively minor things. The first one, I would say, is the concrete steps are kind of pretty badly out of level. And in addition, the railing system has what I believe is an unsafe situation of the gates that the previous owner installed. So what's in the proposal is to replace the three steps, to add sloped railings, and then to replace the window, the attic windows. So, and all of that should be pretty clear in the materials. I would say that regarding the steps, I didn't provide any contributing evidence, and certainly it's the board's decision, but I would be, I don't know if this is an argument, but I'm indifferent to brick, so if it's the board's recommendation with staff to replace those with concrete to match the original, that makes perfect sense to me. And then on the windows, and I didn't do a very good job explaining, so part of the rationale for the attic windows is, typically for 100-year-old, it's a hinged awning window that's not insulated. So one piece of it is to provide better insulation, but another one that, and I honestly haven't taken a measurement of the sill height, but it's likely that the sill height is below 18 inches, which the residential code would require tempered glass. So that was the second reason why I was proposing to replace those attic windows. And it would be just a sash replacement. The frames, the trim would all remain. And I think that's probably the only commentary on the front. And then let me see if I can scroll this properly. On the south elevation, actually, I can probably just go to the, oops. Oh, this is, so are my drawings imaged, or is that on this? Is that in front? That's in front, probably. Yeah, sorry.
We did not carry
Okay.
over any
That's fine.
presentation
We
from
do
last
we
time.
do all have
Oh, you
access
have
to
it,
them
okay.
though.
So, yeah, I don't need to show it. So the primary difference on the south elevation from the original is that the flanking, the sort of double-stepped clipped gable element, if you guys remember that, I've deleted that by relocating the bathroom to the north side. And then speaking of the north side, am proposing a shed roof. And I know that was one of the points staff called out, that it's no longer symmetrical. I suppose I don't know if this fits under the evidence category, but it's very hard to, with that substantial hedge, it's very hard to see the fact that they are asymmetrical. You'd have to be my argument would be you'd have to be looking for it to notice that they're different. For sure, the south elevation is quite visible. I agree with that. And then the rear elevation, the only thing that's changed is per staff recommendation, going with a standing, 1-inch standing seam metal roof on the shed roof. I believe that's the only thing on the I guess that's the east side, the rear. And I think that's, if there are any questions, certainly I can answer them, but.
Okay. We'll get to those in just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll now reach out to the rest of the room to call on anyone who may be wishing to speak in support or opposition to this case. Hearing none, we will go ahead and close the hearing. I'm sorry. I'll seek my fellow commissioners for any comments or question of the applicant, if you don't mind coming back up. I'm sorry you just sat down, but there's a lot of extra people here tonight, which is nice to see. Didn't know if anyone was going to be speaking about your case, but Lauren or Jordan, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I'll go first. Thank you for coming back. It's good to see you again. So for your windows, just so for my clarification, the proposed replacement windows currently are your front two attic dormer windows, the rear, and then are there any additional, and besides the ones you're putting into the new addition, are there any on the existing house that you'll be replacing?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. And those are currently vinyl, correct?
That's correct,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right, and then you answered my question about your stairs. Let me see if I had anything else written here. Could you just maybe illustrate for me a little bit the decision-making between, before we had the dormers on each side of your house were both sort of the truncated, clipped versions in overall style, and now we've got the shed roof. Would you mind just sort of elaborating on your decision to make that one that's facing the hedge side a shed roof instead, just from my understanding?
Sure, yeah. So, and if you have the elevation, so part of it is by, in plan, flipping the back. So in order to keep the minimum code required ceiling height, in both the bedroom and the bathroom, I needed to keep the full height all the way across. I can't remember if that's about 18 feet or 20 feet. So in order to keep the same, it wouldn't be symmetrical to the south side because that's only about 7.5 feet wide at the highest point, the clip dormer. So there kind of isn't enough room on the north side to then drop down, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly.
No, I understand. As a follow-up, is there any limitation on that, on the clipped dormer side to make it into a shed potentially?
So, and this is like my semi-professional opinion,
Sure.
is to make the south side a shed roof. You would notice that it's almost a flat roof and on a highly visible. I would have to extend the flat roof, to create enough clearance in the bedroom rather than kind of dropping down to a knee wall, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I think it would be more imposing and not a good,
I
not a
appreciate
good
the
architectural
sensitivity
solution. It's kind
towards
of-
scale in that
Yeah.
sense, for sure. Part of the reason I ask is because of the evidence you provided that showed, and I don't think it's the only one in the neighborhood that's like this, double shed roofs off of the
Yes.
gable front. And I was going to ask staff that if you're aware of that property on Fillmore and Adams, and if that had been a COA, it looks a little bit.
1201 Fillmore.
Yeah, it's on the corner, right?
It may have been prior, it may have been renovated prior to
I would
the,
It
have
looks
to
a little-
research
it
to
looks
be
a
able to
little
answer that
older.
question.
I'll just add, during our last meeting, when I gave the advice to seek examples, you came back with many, so thank you.
Thank you for those.
But that was the one that stood out as being very sensitive to kind of the context of the original house. Like the original form of that house is still very clear, even though a pretty substantial addition was added.
Yeah.
So additional space, I guess, by sort of putting out those just kind of linear shed form dormers. So
And I
sorry.
did, yeah, and I did, I sort of, from the street, studied that, because the ridge of that house is much taller, it's
It
a bigger
is.
house.
It
Right.
is.
So it's easier that might be a 4 and 12 slope or something like that. It's a more common slope on
Sure.
the shed roof, yeah.
And Lauren, sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no,
but-
you're fine. That was sort of the end of my questioning.
So in your presentation, I just want to be even more clear about the windows. Are you just replacing the sashes on those original windows, or?
So so we're talking about the 2 attic windows?
Yeah.
So the goal was just to replace the sashes.
Okay. And the existing porch flooring is wood?
Yes.
Okay. And in your drawing, the steps would be brick, but the risers would be also brick, or?
That was the intent, is, right now it's cast concrete, obviously, but is to make brick treads and with a nosing on the brick, per code, but be brick risers as well.
Right. And then my other question is about the sort of opposing roofs. I mean, it seems like they're almost symmetrical from the east or west elevation. They're just ever so slightly off. I assume that's to accommodate the height in the bathroom on the one side.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And it looks like the foundation kind of around the entire house is parged brick.
No, it's actually poured concrete.
It's concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. No more questions.
I've got a few. So I think this is a great view to look at because 2 of my questions are about the windows in the attic, and appreciate the concern of energy efficiency and, code required safety. I do think the existing building code grants some leniency for existing conditions. Part of our charge here is to understand if a material needs to be replaced, why it needs to be replaced. So we might need a little more evidence, based on being a street side overlay district. You're on a corner, so it's a great location, but also you now have two street sides, but this is the primary one, and it is a character defining feature on a small house. So if one of the conditions was to ask you to leave those existing windows and maybe consider a storm window to increase your energy efficiency, would you be willing to consider that?
Okay. I totally understand that.
Okay. And then it was probably in your application, but you did just present that the perimeter foundation is poured concrete, and that seems kind of unique for Raleigh, honestly. And so if we asked, we do see a lot of these types of poured concrete stairs, but if we, if we asked you to amend your application to just, it would be acceptable if they need replacement due to either, damage. But if you replace them, we would probably ask you to maintain the current material, which is concrete.
Right.
Would you be?
Which totally
sounds like you're agreeable with that.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
It sounds good. And then I'm sure you read through the staff reports. I think, we can't legislate symmetry, but one of the staff comments was just on, for the size of the house, the relative balance with the dormers upstairs, and trying to find, harmony with the existing house, which really, this house really does speak to the special character of this district. And I know that things are overgrown today, but it's remarkable, changes over time to landscaping, especially trees come and go. It could become more apparent in the future, especially on a prominent corner. I'm sure you read through the staff comments, but do you have any thoughts on maybe trying to pick one or the other and just going with one of those options for the dormer?
Yeah, I would, honestly, to be exactly symmetrical, poses, to be exactly symmetrical one way or the other, is a problem, I think. One, aesthetically, I think to do a shed roof on that prominent facade that is as wide as the north side, I think that would look ugly. Now, I guess that's not evidence, just my professional opinion. And the reverse is if I did let's say a symmetric, a literally symmetrical truncated clip dormer, then I wouldn't have enough headroom for the bathroom, which I think is a bit of a flaw. Now, it doesn't mean that what I'm getting to is a bit of a hybrid, is if from the front view, I could do I'm going to describe it as a one-sided truncated dormer, if that makes sense. So there's a shed roof coming towards the front street that is symmetrical, if that makes sense. But then on the rear side, it's just it continues, rather than dropping down as another gable end, it continues, towards the rear of the house as a, so I would say that's the impression of symmetry as you reviewed from the front, even though if that hedge, the two-story hedge is burned down or something, you'd sort of be able to see it, that it's not all the way through.
Understood. Okay. That makes
So
sense.
that would mean, at least if
that's a good answer.
I'd be acceptable, I can make that work.
Okay. And then the last question I had just about those dormers. Okay, so On the north side, the shed dormer, there's a little bit of overhang, and that would be symmetrical itself, in and of itself, all the way around that,
Right.
more or less, right? And,
Yeah.
I know I should read through all your notes, but that would be, would you have some exposed rafter tails, like, there?
I had, because part of it is to keep, I could do, I mean, I've drawn it as not exposed, but I could see it being exposed rafter tails. That does make sense.
I'm just asking a question. I mean,
Yeah.
your evidence, I'm looking
Yeah.
at the evidence of
Right.
the other examples, and like,
It shows, yeah.
it's
true.
a mix, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Just asking questions, but.
sure.
Lauren or Jordan, any other questions?
No, I think I'm covered.
Okay. At this time, I'll close the evidentiary hearing for committee discussion.
All right.
I was satisfied with the windows and the stair concession.
Yeah.
I'll admit, there's when we see historical photos of many of these properties, like even 20 years ago, like the landscape's totally different. So I do have some concerns over the long-term visibility of that north elevation. I realize we're close to the 50% line on part of it, but I don't know that like an off-centered partial clip dormer seems like an improvement to what's being proposed.
That would be introducing a type that there's no evidence for that I don't believe there is.
I want to say that maybe it's moot because he's already accepted it, but it's interesting that even though the concrete is the foundation for the house, the piers of the front porch are brick. So, and they seemingly always have been, if I'm interpreting the sort of Sears drawings correctly as well. And the stairs probably wood then to match the deck. So, maybe I am the only one up here that appreciates the brick gesture. I think it's a little bit more in keeping with the front facade. It doesn't really react as much to the rest of the house being concrete, but sort of as a compositionally for this, I think brick actually makes more sense than concrete. But
I
not
don't know
gonna-
that we have enough evidence, though, to support that change.
Sure.
In the current application. I mean,
Yeah.
there's evidence of one. I'm not sure that's
I'm with
compelling.
I'm with you. I'm with you. As far as the sort of competing, if you will, dormer forms, I'm not so much hung up on the symmetry of the front facade. This is a corner lot, correct? So Washington Street is like a secondary facade, although I guess that's sort of depends on how often you interact with it from one way or the other. I mean, technically it's secondary, but in some ways it's a A1, A2 kind of situation. And in my reading of it, that the clip dormer is reacting to Washington Street as a primary facade element, in the same way that the open gable on Glenwood is reacting to Glenwood, and the sort of shed roof has its back turned to both primary streets, and that feels correct, if not necessary, and it feels correct and congruous, if not cohesive to this one building.
Yeah, that through line seems logical to me as well. And honestly, in terms of evidence provided, I actually think that these are less massive than other additions that are even presented here and are set back from the front facade in a way that I think makes them a little bit more differential. And so, and I tend to be of the opinion that even though those clip-style dormers are typically seen on the front end of house, I agree that since this is a corner lot, that is also sort of a, in spirit, also a primary facade. And I think, though, while I agree with that through line, I wish we had evidence of multiple, of both, but that would be asking for a house that has 3 different roofline styles, which I think would be just difficult to find in general.
I mean, I would venture that 2 of the houses in the evidence have 3 different roofline styles. It's just that we don't get to see them as a drawn elevation.
Yeah.
We see them as you would experience them as a person walking down the street, so you can't really experience them all at the same time, which is kind of what I'm getting at here, where, you know, this is really closer or as close as you would ever get to seeing sort of the full experience of this facade. And if I understand the drawings correctly, these roof forms are 15 feet back from the primary gable. I doubt very much that you would experience them in the way that you do when you look at these elevations.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty similar to the the house at the corner of Gilmore and Adams. I mean, maybe that's the closest example. You know, if you get that isometric view, but in this case, because the dormers are so pulled back from the front, you wouldn't even see the sort of corner of that.
It would be even less massive presenting, which I do appreciate, and I think that that's a good concession.
I don't disagree. So, anyone want to make a motion, or
Yeah.
would you go ahead?
Jordan.
And I can do it if you would. I've got it pulled together if you'd like me to.
I just want to talk through that
Yeah.
motion before I make it. I would strike the first potential condition.
I think that's fair.
I think the applicant has agreed to the second condition. I think we're fine to leave that one kind of unaltered, right? Does adding a storm window count as a? We don't have to address
that's
that.
up. Yeah, we don't need to address that.
Right, and then and he has also agreed to the third one. So
Which would become 2.
2,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So based on the congruity analysis, staff concerns, previous similar applications, the following conditions are suggested for consideration by the committee. Should the committee choose to approve the application? Condition 1, that all historic wood windows remain. Condition 2, that all reconstructed front step material remain concrete to match existing. Condition 3, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to the issuance of a blue placard. 3A, revised drawings. Actually, maybe strike that one. Do we need revised drawings? What would be in the revised drawings?
Not to remove the windows.
Okay,
And any changes to the stairs,
gotcha.
to remain. Because the revised application is now the current.
Right.
So I think it remains.
So condition 3A, revised drawings.
Yep.
That's my motion. I don't think I said the word motion or move. So that is my motion.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, your application has been approved, and we appreciate your patience while we talk through it. I know it's just a few details, but we care a lot about, it's a great location, beautiful house, so good luck with your project. It will become formal at the next month's hearing when the minutes are approved, and shortly after, staff will contact you and issue the blue placard for the certificate of appropriateness. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to the new applications. I did realize that I failed to ask staff about the minor works at the very beginning of this meeting. I see that
We approved 9 this month.
9, thank you. So shoehorn that bit into our meeting, a little out of sequence, forgive me. Like I mentioned at the start of this meeting, the first new evidentiary application, 516 North Blunt Street, COA 0100-2024, will be postponed until the next month's COA hearing. So we're going to begin the new applications with COA-012-2024, 803 Glenwood Avenue, and I will now recognize staff for their presentation. I believe, Colette, this is you. Thank you.
Yes, you are correct. This is number 102. I notice now that the number is wrong on the top of this slide, but it is 102. So this is for 803 Glenwood Avenue. It is in the Glenwood Brooklyn Historic District, which is a street side HOD. And the nature of the request is to demolish a contributing one-story structure, remove landscaping and site features, including the front walk and steps and retaining wall. And this is just a walk around the existing property. This is a view from Glenwood, a view from the front walk, looking at the front porch, a view of the current front columns, looking down the north side of the property. And this is, again, that north facade, but looking back towards Glenwood. This is a view of the rear facade. And again, of the rear from further back in the backyard. Again, the existing backyard and rear facade. This is a view of the south facade at the southwest corner. Oops. The south facade again. And the summary of the staff concerns is that no evidence was provided to assert that the building has no particular significance or value towards maintaining the character of the Glenwood Brooklyn Historic District. And then the demolition guidelines have kind of a checklist of things to consider, including opportunities for salvage, and that was also not addressed.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will call the applicant forward for their presentation or any additional information they'd like to provide. Good evening.
Good evening.
Before we start, would you state your name, address, and relationship to the property?
Yes, Sylvain Dufour. My address is 3702 Rolston Drive, and me and my wife are the owner of the property.
And will your wife be presenting at all as well?
No.
Okay, I'm going to start by swearing you in.
Sure.
If you don't mind raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you very much. You may proceed.
Thank you. Oops. Okay. So my name is Sylvain, and on behalf of myself and my wife, Vanessa, I would like to explain why we are here today. So our son Noah goes to Raleigh Charter, just a couple of blocks from 803 Glenwood. His dream is to go to NC State. When we saw the opportunity to buy this house back in May 2022, we jumped on it, but we didn't realize at the time all the obstacles we would face. Over the last 2 years, we worked on a plan that would preserve over 50% of the current home, while incorporating an addition that would add the living space required by our family. We thought we would build a large kitchen and a family room because we love to entertain our neighbors and friends. We would have a couple of guest bedrooms because we don't have any family in this country, so they would be comfortable when they come to visit us. We'd also build a beautiful rooftop with views of the city. We wanted to preserve not just the outside of the house, but the floors, windows, fireplaces, pocket doors, exposed walls inside the house that would be covered with glass, and even do a panel with a slate tiles in case the roof wasn't salvageable. So just to be clear, the house we design is in full compliance with the Raleigh UDO, the footprint, setbacks, impervious, overall height, wall articulation, roof line, and rooftop would be approved without any problem once we apply for a permit with the city of Raleigh. But in May 2024, we came in front of this committee to present our project. A large group of neighbors came to oppose it. Ironically, for a project located in the street side historic overlay district, not a single neighbor across the street came to oppose the project. We think that they understand that anything being built there is better than the crumbling house that has been decaying for decades. So after the meeting back in May, we decided to see if we could work on tweaking our plan to reach a common ground. Over the following months, we sent multiple emails and voicemails to Fred Belledin at Clearscape, who was present to oppose the project and offered to help. He unfortunately never took the time to reply to us. Our attorney then managed to set up a meeting that Fred canceled a couple days before it took place. Subsequently, we reached out to other local architects, including Ashley Morris, David Moore, who had no interest in being involved in this project. So, 2 years later, after purchasing that carcass of this house for $551,000, spending over $70,000 working on a set of new plans, attorney's fee, protecting the leaking roof with a tarp, boarding the house to keep intruders out, real estate taxes, interest in the mortgage, we are now filing for demolition. We cannot continue to work on a project where neighbors take 3 hours of their time on a Thursday evening to voice their opposition, but refuse to meet in a coffee for 30 minutes. Neighbors who could not be more divided about the outcome of this house. Some would love for this house to be torn down and a new one built because they are only concerned with shed in their backyard, even so that themselves have used every additional square footage above their detached garage and build exterior stairs without consideration for their neighbors. Others who have gotten used to the views of a vacant house backyard and don't want anything built that would change their view. And others who don't even live in the same block and are only concerned with restoring the house to its original state without any addition. You probably noticed by now that I was born and raised in France, a country rich in history where you see structures that are 300-400 years old all around you. My parents live in a building that is 200 years old. People have embraced modern additions because they know you can't live the same way people did when these structures were built. Everywhere in Europe, historic buildings incorporate large additions to accommodate modern needs. All city halls have just the facade preserved, and a brand new building have been replaced to accommodate the lifestyle of the world we live in. So addition in glass and steel, contrasting materials that showcase our history while innovating. Unfortunately, the city of Raleigh chose a path where flexibility and compromise is not an option. Even so, the Glenwood Brooklyn is the first street-side historic overlay. It doesn't practically change much on what can be done. A process where building a rooftop in the back is not welcome, a process where you have to fight and justify the use of a glass railing. So the attempt to salvage this house is no longer makes sense for us. The financial hit that we have taken so far is beyond what we can carry on. The time consumed on this project has taken us nowhere in spite of our effort. We came in wanting to save this house and build a home for ourselves. We will now pursue different paths. So our decision has been taken and we will move forward with a demolition plan. Let it be on the record that the loss of this house is on the Glenwood Brooklyn neighbors and the burdensome process the Historic Committee imposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will call on anyone wishing to speak in support of the application. At this time, and you may have a seat, sir. Thank you. At this time, I will call on anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the case. Good evening. If you'll state your name.
My name's Don Davis. I live
you.
at 603 South Boylan Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
So I'm a former chair of the RHDC, former member of this committee. Currently, I'm on the executive board of Preservation Raleigh. And when I look at this house, its elegant front door, its wraparound porch, it was really sets the character of the district, especially on Glenwood, which is the most visible street in the district, and they built houses to impress, and this house was built to impress. To lose that will lose a part of this district. That's really important. I know you can't stop the demolition, but I would encourage you to impose a 365-day delay so we can look at ways to perhaps save this house. At Preservation Raleigh, someone approached us who's interested in perhaps buying the house, if the applicant's interested, to restore it to what it was to begin with. It's not the first time that this has happened in this district. When I was on the committee, the COA committee, a house on North Boylan, there were owners who felt their only option was to tear down the house. We imposed the 365-day delay, and during that period, they talked to various people, and they realized that they could make the house be what they wanted it to be, and so they came back with an addition that met the guidelines, and they're really happy with their house. They didn't have to tear it down. So I would say give it time to see what we can do to save that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would wish to speak on this case? Hearing none, I will bring the applicant back up if you would like to respond. If you don't want to respond, you don't have to, but okay. Okay. And at this time, I will ask my fellow committee members up here if they have any thoughts or questions for the applicant. So we may call you back to the podium if you don't mind returning. I'm sorry for the up and down. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have an obligation to state that individuals in this proceeding can appear and represent on their own behalf, but in order to appear on behalf of an organization, you have to be either a lawyer or represented by a lawyer. Just want to make sure I just state that for the record. I have a legal obligation to do that.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
So just to be clear, when we purchased the house, it was the name of an LLC, and we switched to our own name a month ago, so we could actually file for demolition without the need of a lawyer.
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, just.
Yeah.
you have any questions, Lauren, for the applicant? I'm putting you on the spot, so
No,
I
no.
do if you don't.
I'm wondering if it's even worth the inquiry. The staff concerns in relation to this demolition mentioned that your application suggests that the structure is deficient, but did you have a structural assessment made by an engineer that suggests that it's unsalvageable?
No.
Okay.
What we did is we had a report stating that the roof was leaking and there was not enough slats to be replaced, and half of the column on the front porch are gone,
Right.
which I don't know the impact on the structure of the house.
Got you. All right. I think that would be my only question.
Okay. Jordan?
No questions.
Okay. I have a few. You know, I'm sensitive to your frustration with the process you've been through, and hearing $70,000 in professional fees on top of what you paid for the house. I'm sympathetic, but we are here to preserve and protect historic resources. So my questions are going to try to remain around that. But so I do want to just state for the record that at the May 2024 hearing, we did not reject your application.
I agree.
And we did not reject it because, as you stated, it does have potential for being approved. So I feel like the record needs to be stated clearly that we didn't try to push you away.
But I think the discrepancy is getting into this process. It's a street side historic overlay. So we thought that all our assumptions were based of we're going to keep exactly as is, restored exactly to the best we can, 50% of the house at a minimum, and we were free to build whatever we could. And what we discovered, while not rejected, we discovered by the strong opposition by the neighbor that it was clearly an impossible process, that even so the UDO tells us you can go to 42 feet, 3 stories, it would not fly in this district. That everybody would block us, and it would take months and months and months of adjustments. And that's why we took some steps to try to meet the neighbors and say,
I'll add a little bit of context here as staff, just to confirm the acting chair's assertion that the previous addition COA application was deferred or withdrawn prior to receiving a final COA decision. The COA process is its own legal process outside of additional UDO requirements. Those are not applicable through this legal process. They are in addition to those requirements. And as that application has been withdrawn, there is no additional need to discuss the merits of that case because it is not on the table tonight. So I just encourage everyone to refocus on the current discussion. But thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Let's see. So have you studied any alternatives to demolition? Have you considered any alternatives to demolition?
we did.
Okay.
I contacted multiple developers that have done restoration, people that would, be interested. They all turned me down just because the financial doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
It's not that there is, we're not lacking a candidate. There might be a few people that are willing to restore the house, except that they are not going to pay us what we pay for this house. That was the outcome.
Okay. Do you have a plan for individual materials to be salvaged?
Not yet.
Okay. Do you have any evidence showing that the building is not of historic significance?
No, I do not.
Okay. Would you be able to prepare that evidence?
No, my assumption is it has some historic significance, and you guys are going to take the 365-day pass to approve the demolition. So I just don't see the point of doing more research to end up in the same conclusion.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Do you, Lauren or Jordan? Okay. At this moment, I'm going to close the evidentiary hearing. You may have a seat, and we'll deliberate up here. Thank you.
Considering the staff concerns and what we've heard from the applicant, I think the reports for potential conditions feel right to me as far as 365-day delay, considering we're lacking evidence that would support waiving it. Do you agree?
Catherine, if we have questions about evidence that we're asking for, can you give us a little bit of guidance on, are we able to defer to await further evidence?
What are you struggling with imposing the 365-day, or what do you think that evidence would do?
It would at least demonstrate that the applicant has some sort of plan to, has at least made some attempt to preserve some portions of this house.
Yeah, so, well, I'm not sure. So it can't be denied, right? And then there's a 365 delay, and there's two kind of standards for shortening that time period. One of those is if there's no special significance or value towards maintaining the character of the district. The other one is if the commission finds the owner would suffer extreme hardship or be permanently deprived of all beneficial use of or return from such property by virtue of the delay. So those are your two standards.
Okay.
If you think that the information from the applicant could potentially shorten the delay time and you want to allow them to bring forth that evidence, you can continue it for that. But if you're going to continue it, if that evidence doesn't exist, or if you would be adding an extra month onto something that they're entitled to have it can't be denied.
Okay.
Does that help you at
Yep.
all? I feel like I'm just kind of okay.
I feel like the applicant hasn't really put in much work, but I understand where to go from here.
Yeah, if you think that you want to give them the opportunity to do that, then that is up to you guys.
To shorten the delay.
Right, you just can't make it longer.
Got it. Okay. I move to approve the application with the following conditions. One, that a 365-day delay be imposed. And two, that an RHDC appointed volunteer serve as a liaison to the property owner to assist the owner in reviewing all alternatives to demolition and or salvage opportunities during the 365-day delay.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jordan. All those in favor, say aye or raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay. Your application has been approved. It will be formalized next month. Thank you for coming back. I'm sorry you've chosen this path, but we understand you have the right to do that. We'll appoint a liaison if you'll work with us to discuss alternatives to, demolition of the entire property. We look forward to working with you on that. So good luck on your project, and thank you.
And before you move on, I'll add, when we approve the minutes next month,
yeah.
or should we approve the minutes next month, I think you should establish who that liaison will be at that time.
Sure, we will. I think being, a little bit shorter staffed up here today, we'll figure it out, though. So thank you for the clarification. All right. The next case is COA 0103-2024. This is 112 North Bloodworth, and I will welcome staff for their presentation. I believe Colette will lead us through a presentation on the application.
All right, as you mentioned, this is case 103-2024 for 112 North Bloodworth Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, a traditional historic overlay district. The nature of the request is to remove an existing deck and to construct a screen porch and deck. Now, this property is a duplex. It is symmetrical and identical on both sides, but we're talking about the northern side of the structure. So that's what you see in front of you here. And from a little further north on Bloodworth, this is a view down the north side of the house from the driveway, and a view of the portion of the existing deck that is proposed to be altered. It is a overgrown lot, so there are only a few vantage points that we got here. This is a view of the deck looking across to the existing separation point to the deck on the other side. And a view looking back across the rear yard at the neighboring house. The summary of staff concerns: the application proposes the use of a screen ease system that I do not believe the commission has reviewed previously or approved before, but it is flush mounted to the corners, and there was a graphic included in the application that illustrated that. Typically, the commission has required that screening be installed on the inside of any railing so that it still appears as a traditional porch from the exterior. Evidence was not provided showing that the door surround is deteriorated beyond repair. I think that was not intended to be included here. Clarity on the railing posts. One note says that they will be installed using through bolts, but there was another graphic that suggested differently. And typical material details and specifications that are usually provided as conditions.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call on the applicant for their presentation and any additional information.
Once, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll each take a turn stating your name and address and relationship to the case.
Drew Beck. I live at 112 North Bloodworth Street and the owner.
Great.
And I'm Rebecca Beck. I live at 112 North Bloodworth, and I'm also the
Great.
owner.
And I'll swear you both in if you don't mind raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed with any additional information you want to provide.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to adjusting the flush mounted corners if need be. I believe the designer said we could do that if we needed to. So no, if that is a requirement, we can make that happen. And then the railing post with the through bolts and specifications, any other additional information that's needed, we'd be happy to provide it back to this group.
Great. Any additional information?
We are getting yard work done. Sorry, it was so overgrown.
It's
Like
okay.
most things, it's a
It
domino
was a good
effect.
application,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
still pretty clear. Okay. If there's no other information, I just need to check. You can hang right there for a minute, but does anyone else present want to speak in support or opposition or have any other comments on this application? Hearing now none, you can remain at the podium. I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners for any comments or questions we might have.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with you guys. So currently, the first potential condition, deck railing post mounted on the inside of the joist band. That's cool with you guys?
Yeah.
With your
think
designer.
We just needed to look at the design. Is it,
So you're saying that the screen ideally would be installed on the inside of the railing?
Screen on the inside of the railing, and then the railing posts mounted inside your joist band. They're currently shown outside. Sorry, I'm looking at your elevations.
The posts would appear like they stop at the decking rather
not
than
go outside.
rather than continuing
correct. Yeah.
on the outside, and then the joist band is sort of the fascia around the deck, and that would just appear continuous. Is what that condition was about.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, sorry.
about a couple inches, right? I mean,
Does that seem reasonable?
That's fine, and I believe we read that note, and I thought that the designs had been updated, correct?
So
No.
So your 3D views in the application appear the way we're describing it. However, the deck designer's installation details, so there's an enlarged detail that shows it going past, which is probably the way they commonly do it. It's just a little bit different, but it's found to be more congruous if the skirting of the deck continues, past the posts.
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay.
All right, that was it.
Jordan, any questions?
Just one, I guess I'm looking at your 3D view here. Where would you put a downspout?
So the downspout, from what he told us, will be basically in the middle. So towards if you're looking at the drawing from the back of the house, it would be towards the left. The downspout would come down there on that side. And we would have a gutter that runs along the back of the house, across the one side of the deck and the other side, and then it would come down over there.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what you remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I may have missed it in your application, but the screen ease, you probably heard us, the staff presentation, it hasn't, to our knowledge, been approved. That doesn't mean we're opposed to it. The rendering does show it everything as white trim, depending on, arguably with, and it could just be the way the renderings are. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions about color. Sure. The decks, the screen porch, the posts, and structural members, they appear to be left natural wood, but presumably would you stain them or paint them? Do you have an opinion?
I think we've gotten that far in the
Okay.
design process, but we're open, and they're certainly open to, what we would need to do
Sure.
to get it approved.
Okay. It would be reasonable for the screen ease, we've asked that you move it to the inside of the railing. If the finished color of that could just be the closest suitable match to whatever you choose for the wood finish. It looks like there's multiple options, so you should have some latitude, but you would just need to present that to staff, before finalizing your application.
Okay.
Just asking that as a question if you're agreeable to it. I don't.
Or installed in a way where it's not visible. They seem to have
Yeah,
they have a image here where it's mounted to the front, which you could easily also do that to the back.
Okay. At this time, I will close the evidentiary hearing for commission or committee discourse. Lauren, Jordan, any thoughts? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
feeling good
so
about
I
it.
think they kind of agreed to address staff concerns, so
Motion? I think it's my turn.
All right.
yeah,
Go
go
for
for it.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve case number COA 0103-2024 with the following conditions. Condition 1, that the deck railing post be mounted on the inside of the joist band. Number 2, that the porch screening material be installed on the interior of the railing. And 3, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or construction: downspout specifications and location on the building and exterior lighting specifications.
I would like to propose a friendly amendment to that.
Okay.
Potential condition 3C, that the finish color of the screen ease be submitted to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction.
Do I have to repeat it all again?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't believe so. That amendment can be added.
You accept?
I accept the amendment as proposed, or do you?
I accept the
Okay.
amendment as proposed. Thank you.
Sorry, overstepping my bounds. Motion has been made. Question for the committee is whether or not to agree with the amendment or the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. So the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Project has been approved, and the blue placard will be available after, I'm sorry, the approval will be memorialized at the next month's hearing, and then subsequently you'll receive your blue placard. Staff will work with you on a couple of outstanding finish questions, and good luck on your project. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
At this time, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess. Good evening. We're ready to resume the meeting. We'll now call application COA 0104-2024 325 Polk Street up, and staff will begin with their presentation. I believe, Aaron, you've got this one.
Yes, that's me. So this is case COA 104-2024 at 325 Polk Street in the Oakwood Historic District. As you can see, this is a corner property, and the work request is for the back section of the house facing the side street. The request is to remove a non-historic side entry deck, construct a new side entry deck with wood deck and brick piers and steps, and install some underdeck screening. This is a view from Polk Street, moving around the corner toward the work area. You can see kind of where that dumpster is where the deck will be relocated. A better view of that overall space and a detail of the existing condition. There are no staff concerns.
Thank you. We'll now call the applicant up to the podium for any additional information or presentation you might have. I'm going to swear you both in. If you'll state your name and address and relation to the property.
Yes. I'm Edith Wooten. I'm the owner of 325 Polk Street.
I'm Ivan Bailey, husband and also owner of 325 Polk
Great.
Street.
And I'll swear you both in simultaneously if you don't mind raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. You may proceed. You may proceed. I'm sorry, not BC.
I'm sorry.
I said it too
I thought
quickly.
I was finished.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can proceed with any additional
Thank you so
information.
much for hearing our application. Our architect, Ashley Morris Hinkle, is not able to present it. She was the one that submitted it. It's a lot of detail. And thank you to staff for working this through with us and answering my questions. I think the only thing that I would like to add to what Aaron has already told you is that there was a little concern over the pier for the porch. And I've talked to my builder, and they understand that they've told me that the way they do it is they hand dig all of the post holes for the piers, not just the ones closest to trees. All of them will be, and they will use the tool that they're supposed to tool. They're very familiar with that. It's Sigmund Construction, and they've done a lot of houses in the Oakwood area, so they're very sensitive to preserving the look of the house, and also being careful about our beautiful willow oak that's at the corner of the lot.
Great. Thank you.
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but.
Sure, we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay. But any other information you'd like to provide?
The reason why we're doing this is because we're moving the entrance from sort of a more interior area. That was an area that used to be a porch. It's all non-historic, and we're trying to move it to the back of the house, which is the kitchen, the original kitchen, taller ceilings, an area that we think will showcase the house better. And it's also an area that we'd rather, go into entry.
We've also seen that there was a door there at one time.
Yeah, I saw that in the application.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was honestly very helpful information.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. We'll come back to that in just a moment. You're welcome to stay at the podium just for a minute. At this time, I'll ask if there's any questions from those or comments from those remaining in the room, either in support or opposition. Seeing none, we will now ask our fellow commissioners if they have any questions for the applicant.
I don't think you.
Just want to say I thought it was a really nice application, and I think it actually, there's some weird conditions there today, but it does seem like it improves it a lot. We don't look on the interior, but since the plans were provided, it was like really nice to see the updates. So, well, if there are no other other questions or comments, then I'll make a motion that based on the information provided in the application and the evidentiary hearing this evening, that we approve this application with the following condition, which the applicant has already stated, that any new post holes in a critical root zone be dug manually and tree roots larger than 1-inch caliper that might be encountered while digging receive a clean final cut using tools designed for the purpose, such as loppers.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye or raise your right hand.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Your application will be approved with the meeting minutes of next month's meeting, and then staff will issue the blue placard afterwards. So,
Technically, the decision is not final until they adopt this month's decisions in the minutes at next month's meeting. But we will issue the placard to you that very next Friday morning. So we do not encourage you to move forward with work that you don't have that official approval for officially.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay. At this time, we will call on application COA 0110-2024, 300 Blake Street, and I will welcome staff for their presentation.
All right. Do you want to say? Okay. This is case 110, 2024 for 300 Blake Street. I will note that this is, the official address is 321, but the particular storefront that this work is affecting is historically addressed as 300 Blake Street, and that is what it shows up at in the Moore Square Historic District record. So that is the discrepancy that you see. But the nature of this request is to alter the storefront, including installing new entry bays, altering window openings, removing existing door openings, replacing exterior lighting, and changing the paint color. This is a view of the property from the south side of Blake Street. And again, this is a detail view of the existing southernmost window bay. This is the southernmost existing entryway, an alcove. This is the alcove on the north side, and this is the northernmost window that is proposed to be altered. And an abbreviated summary of staff concerns. There was no evidence provided regarding the historic storefront configuration, specifically the proposed recesses and the removal of potentially historic brick.
Thank you. At this time, I will call the applicant forward to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening.
State your name, and I'll swear you in.
Worth Mills, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302, Raleigh, NC 27612.
Thanks, Worth. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Here on behalf of the applicant, I'm going to turn it over to Allison Croup with Lewis Cherry Architecture, who's going to walk you through the proposed changes.
Okay. I'll swear her in as well. Good evening. Will you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm Allison Croup, address 206 South Pettigrew Street, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Thank you. Do you mind raising your right hand? I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You may go ahead.
I do have some additional documentation that I printed out, if I can share that.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I made 8 copies. And that documentation is some historic photos from the NC State Archives that show the building. The date's unknown, but based on the cars and other elements, we believe probably like the 70s. but it does give some historic evidence to what the Blake Street facade looked like at the time. So as they mentioned, this is 300 Blake Street, not on the Blount Street side. The building originally was constructed in 1915 and was an auto parts and service building. So you can see that on the Sanborn map as well, which I've provided. The facade has undergone many modifications in the past few decades to make it viable for different mercantile tenants. And the current owner would like to recombine the two separate tenant suites into a single tenant suite, which requires some changes to the fire exiting, which is the purpose of requesting these changes, in that I need to provide two fire exits that are on the opposite ends of that storefront. The proposed design, we are asking to recess those vestibules and entrances so those doors do not outswing onto the public right-of-way. It also creates a shelter for those entrances, and while I have not provided photos, it does mimic the character of other city market entrances that are generally recessed slightly to allow for the doors. I know one of the comments about the brick, that is something we are open to the committee's recommendations on. We have had a contractor review the brick. I don't have any official report on it, but our understanding is very soft. And they're concerned that in the demolition process, it will be hard to maintain that. So for the sill under the windows, if that wants to be new brick, wood, we're open to options on that. I think that's really all I have. I know there was another comment originally about the existing entrances and how we're treating those. We are reducing the depth slightly so that they don't appear like they're still openings, but we're keeping some of the depth so we can keep some of the existing wood paneling without disturbing any of that. Our intention is probably to fill that space with a planter or the like so that people don't just walk into a window. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. At this time, I will call on anyone wishing to speak, either in support or opposition. There's still one person here, so I'm obligated to ask, but seeing none, I will now ask my commissioners here if they've got any questions for the applicant.
I think you may have answered it. It's about the existing entrances. So part of it is they're not entrances, they won't be entrances anymore, and you want to make that facade more consistent across all 4 bays.
Yes, that's correct.
I guess I'm sort of wondering, looking at the facade, why the new entrances require a recess. And I guess maybe instead of that question, I would ask, had you considered making the new entrances on the far left and far right, in the sort of existing opening?
Yes, we did consider that, but they would be outswinging into the public right-of-way, and given the width of that sidewalk currently, we'd need to get a minor encroachment permit, and it just introduces just issues with pedestrian flow that we didn't want to introduce, so that's why we proposed recessing those entrances in, which I believe is, you sort of see that with the City Market Sushi and some of the other storefronts in City Market.
I feel like I need to clarify, the staff concern was not the fact that there are recesses. It was primarily maintaining the existing appearance of a recess in what is proposed to be enclosed, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yep.
It does. It's a bit of a question, but and a comment. I mean, I've worked on a lot of modifications to sidewalk, storefront entrances, it's tricky, and this has some some pretty good grade change along the front, and it's a pretty long facade, so it's not so much a question, but just to advise. I know even in your renderings, it looks like there's a little lip on the new proposed recess to the south end or the left elevation that you're proposing. So sometimes those in and of themselves require encroachment agreements. So just, if you're trying to improve life safety, I'm appreciative of that, but just, take care when trying or having your contractor negotiate those grades. Because when I did my site visit, it is pretty, it's pretty steep. And like you said, there's no sidewalk to work with.
Right. Absolutely, and we've looked at, we're working with a contractor currently, and we've talked about how to slope that tile in the new vestibule down, and possibly even recessing the interior slab slightly and dropping that down. And then on the opposite end there, we will be extending the raised level interior, so
Sure.
definitely something we're considering.
Okay, great. And then a true question, the rendering, I mean, I think you have a really nice existing photo just head on, and then the rendering is below. It makes it really easy to compare. When I visited, there's an art gallery there today, and this is basically the questions pertaining to the openings where you're showing on the right and left ends where you're proposing the new recesses. It does seem like there's brick extending behind what is currently drywall on the interior, but you're bringing the outside in deeper. Am I understanding it correct that maybe there's a wood paneling or some feature that starts where the brick stops, somewhere the brick stops, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. And where there's any interior brick that we can expose, we'll probably be leaving that exposed in some way, but that's correct.
Okay, and then since you mentioned working with the contractor, did they have, staff concerns do mention, as you mentioned in your presentation, just the softness of the brick, and I mean, did they give you any sort of reassurance of, it looks like it's being left natural, so what protective measures they can take to make sure those pilasters, I think mainly the pilasters would be, at the very ends would be, worth being concerned about them deteriorating. Did they give you any reassurance?
Oh, I have not discussed that with the contractor yet, and
Okay.
that's more of building maintenance side question, but something we can definitely address.
Okay. And then the last question, and it may have been in the application, I apologize if I missed it, but in the new recesses where you're showing the brick sills, is that suggested to be salvaged brick there?
So,
or
I believe this may be a mistake in our application. There's one rendering that's showing brick sills, and the other renderings are showing wood sills, and our proposal is for wood sills.
Okay.
It was something we went back and forth
Yeah.
on a bunch of times. So
Okay.
our proposal is for wood sills that are painted to match all of the other wood siding.
Got it. But just to be clear, in the center bay, you're not doing any work where
No
it's
work.
just the picture windows? Okay.
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions.
That was my question, so thank
Okay.
you.
At this time, we will close the evidentiary hearing for committee discussion.
The applicant said they might be open to, I guess, sort of the first rendering there with the brick under the windows. I think there's just not much historically to draw on other than maybe the second picture and the additional materials they provided. It looks like below those sort of boarded up openings there is brick.
It was taller at that time, so it's
Yes.
been modified.
Correct.
Multiple times. But
Correct.
Are you saying you prefer the brick or the wood?
I'm not here to speak to preference. Only Only congruity.
That's right.
I heard the applicant say would, and I was appreciative of that comment. If there's any subjectivity allowed, I thought that sounded like an appropriate response. But Lauren, any other thoughts?
I mean, hearing the evidence regarding right-of-way, I think my first instinct was that there was a path towards more congruity, but hearing the issue with the doors would definitely make sense. I feel like that's not a path forward, so I actually feel like I'm feeling pretty good about this application, so.
Okay. I did just have a question for staff. When it's just a little bit of demolition work, but when material's taken down, we seen conditions to preserve any salvage material on site or nearby, or is that too much to ask?
I don't think that has previously been a condition that has been imposed on an application. Would the intent be for it to be used in the project or to retain
for future use? It just seems like it's a unique.
That probably wouldn't be an ideal condition of approval, but as guidance, I think you could probably offer that.
Okay.
Just as a suggestion.
Maybe consider that.
It feels similar to the liaison condition for demolition, where it would be nice if pieces of the demolished structure could be preserved, but maybe we can't impose that.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have seen one used before where it was like you were getting at something very specific that you were going to reuse and you can identify it in the condition, but you got to think about somebody picking this up, 5 years from now and being able to know what it says. So, if it's too vague, then, So, yeah, I agree with what Colette said.
So it'd just be, I think it's fair to say, it is a small amount of material too, so our recommendation is if it can be preserved, great, do that, but otherwise, do we feel like we can make a motion? I don't believe so.
Go for it.
There you go. I've talked too much.
Based on the evidence provided in the evidentiary hearing, and in the staff report, I move that application COA 0110-2024 be approved.
Seconded.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Your project has been approved. It will be formalized at next month's COA meeting, and staff will work with you after that to issue the blue placard. So good luck on your project. It's a tricky little spot, so, but look forward to seeing.
It's a cute store.
Yeah, it's great. So, yeah. All right. At this time, we have, I know we have committee discussion. I know we had a retreat earlier this week. There was some discussion there about the future of the guidelines. I don't know if there's anything that we should say here, but maybe that's for an upcoming meeting. Any other committee discussion?
The only thing I was going to add, and I meant to say this in the presentation and neglected completely forgot about it. As you mentioned, there were no conditions provided as possible recommendations in the last application. And that was because any conditions that we would have potentially worded to address the staff concerns would have required a change to the application. So I know in the past, you've seen conditions that are like that, but that is something that we are going to be moving away from. That is the goal. And so in that list of potential conditions you could consider. It's primarily going to be, the list of things that we've noticed that we would require more information about, just for ease of your condition making. But anything that relates to a change to the application, that will come from you directly.
Yeah, we discussed reiterating for you all, especially since that's a newer way to handle things, that primarily, just because there's not a potential condition included in the staff report does not mean that it is not necessarily a staff concern. So we suggest focusing in terms of the overall congruity thoughts you might have and discussion on the staff concerns section, because it may not all translate through to the second section of that report.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You'll definitely see that again starting next month. You would have
Okay.
seen it twice tonight. So.
Any other conversation? Discussion? Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.